Well, I'm so excited to chat with all of you guys. We Feed People is such a great project, and I was really like blown away by everything that you guys you guys did. I've talked to like a lot of DPs before, but I don't know if I've talked to like three DPs at once. So this is new for me, and I was wondering, like, I guess one of my first questions was, what was it like collaborate? What was your collaboration process like throughout this whole project?
There's different time
Well,
components, you know, like Kris and me and Alicia, we met in a hard time for everybody. It was the COVID days, and it took us a long time before we bumped into each other. On the beginning of all of this, me and Alicia was fortunate to get invited by José to come along for the early days of activation. So we were the primary film team. And then decade later, Ron got involved and brought in his people, which is basically this gentleman here, Kris, who has a big camera, small camera, big hand, big heart. And we spent a month and a half together in Navajo Nation. And that's when we really fell in love with each other as fellow buddies, as fellow filmmakers, passionate about understanding what is happening underneath COVID in the biggest Native American reservation in the US, Navajo Nation, that is merging with three US states. And that was our moment. We also spent time together in New York, but we are friends because of this project, and we collaborate left and right, supporting each other. Our love lives and music lives and storytelling lives are intertwined. And I'm a better person because of my friendship with Kris. So
and
that's
now we're
my
married,
speech. Now we're
and
married.
we just got married.
But
Live
Alicia's
here.
my best friend. Just acknowledging that. Like we go way back, been 15 years, and Kris is a new kind of ally. But it's a timeless friendship. And that's what happens with filmmakers because we all have the same storytelling commitment that started around the fire back in the days with all of us when we're sitting around the fire telling stories. Now we're just using a camera instead of the talking stick.
That's great. Kris, did you have anything to add about the collaboration process?
The Yeah, it was very fluid. I think it was natural. It was extremely interesting as far as learning about people who were embedding like Sebastian and Alicia were embedding their lives into World Central Kitchen. And so it kind of became a one part job and then one part their actualization of their life's mission, which I think is to kind of better the earth, as far as I've gathered since meeting them. Living up to our true potential to help um, the best, I guess, to be our full self, be our fully realized self. And people like us, for one reason or another, we wanted to affect like positive social change. And I think we've always involved ourselves in projects. And so it was interesting meeting at this juncture because we're all just kind of about doing the same thing, but just coming from different angles.
Yeah,
So
so was it Sebastian and Alicia, were they the ones who were like working more with We Feed People and you um were you brought on by Ron Howard?
yeah,
Okay.
I was with Ron Howard's team, but the Sebastian and Alicia, they've been shooting for like 13 years. The archival with World Central, and then when in the edit, it became obvious that the only way to properly tell the story is to tell it with the footage that existed.
Yes.
It just so happens that the two people who had been shooting this footage for 13 years uh, were really good cinematographers, and they nailed it. And here we are. So.
That's amazing. Wow, that puts it all together. Now I understand how that's great. I wanted to ask you guys about that opening scene on the water. Um, who was there for that? That was wild, like to watch.
Not it.
Yeah, that's actually Alex. So we're there are a lot of cinematographers who have contributed to this film, and we've worked closely with them. And that was Alex.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the story, but it's as you see it, they kept filming, and it was a bit scary, but they got rescued.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Did you any like I mean this film goes all over. Do any different locations have different looks or styles, or did you try to have like a seamless type of style for each one?
I don't think we even think about it.
Yeah.
What is the style? We are fortunate that we have an opportunity to be part of telling the story, what is happening, and we try to enter a disaster or a place where humanity is having a really hard time as early as possible with the early people who are coming in from World Central Kitchen side, so that we can tell the progression and see the changes, because a kitchen can be built within a few hours sometimes, and it's just this quick shift, and we are just in it. We don't know really too much about what the look is going to be. If we need to capture bird's eye, we throw up the drone. If we want to showcase something being built, we put up a time lapse, if that's the phone, or if a DJI Osmo, or if it is a GoPro. It doesn't matter. In the end, the editing will tell the story, but we are trying to capture the stories that are necessary for people to feel the shared humanity, which is so powerful at the hardest moments. There's a lot of darkness, there's a lot of pain, but in these moments, you also see women, you see people who have a lot of wisdom in the community coming out to share. You see people kind of purging out the things that separate us, and just showing up for one another and recognizing that we're all distant relatives. That is that powerful vibration that we all tap into when we are moving between disasters. And how the look is going to be just becomes an afterthought in post.
Wow.
I think.
Well, we all might have a different answer to that. I think. We're looking for the best quality we can get, but with something that we can easily carry. And also, I'm talking Sebastian and I, and those who we are working with, who are working also with World Central Kitchen, because we're kind of balancing the needs between what we want to capture the story quickly to share with people, and then also be able to capture something for the longer form, whatever that might be. I mean, we've been filming for a long time, always knowing we need to be filmed long form sometimes, because there will be a film. Even though we didn't know who was going to direct it, we always said, well, we're filming this for the long one. But you can't have two cameras with you, in filming this way. And so we need a camera that can also take pictures. And so, yeah, that's my answer.
That's great. Kris, did you have anything to add?
Gotcha. Well, I mean, from our perspective, we definitely had to add a different element because we were introducing like interviews and whatnot with everyone. So we had to think of a design and a look for that. I love Wes Anderson, so most all the interviews I wanted to keep directly centered. We used an Interrotron setup for José, so he could speak directly to Ron, because we wanted to get him looking right down the barrel. And as far as that goes, that was our only interview with José that we had to sit down.
Wow.
So it was very important that we get in his brain, so that was the intention of having him just be able to look directly at Ron and answer and have a proper conversation to see, and then the other side camera would be, it was a telephoto going, basically it was just trying to stay with his eyes and to to feel his emotion as we were going through, because we had very limited like ability, like controlled situation to celebrate our main character in in the way we were filming it, which wasn't countering. It was just, you know, that we were adding a stylistic choice to the film overall at that. But yeah.
That's great. I keep thinking about the moment where he gets up, like Jose gets upset with somebody and like yells at them, and the one woman is really upset, who was one who was going to be eating, partaking in the food, and he's like, and she like kind of walks off, and he's like, please, please eat, please eat. And I think about how do you like you're right there in the action, and like how do you put yourself in those situations and also like capture the action without getting in the way?
Alicia, you're muted, but you look very convincing.
No, I'm trying to get him off because he wants to play with my computer. So why don't you go ahead and continue?
Oh, really? Okay. This scene, I wish I was there. I was not there. I was somewhere else filming, most likely. But how to capture Jose at the essence, how to be invited into the inner circle of his thoughts. You just need to be okay to not always feel good, because he will question, he will get angry. And back in the days when we started filming with him, you know, there were moments where he was a little bit mean to people around and yelling, and that was part of his leadership style. So people back in the days especially was a little bit afraid of him when he was moving around, and that's how he got shit done. But with the years and as friendship develops, as you become friends with the family, with the three daughters and Tichi, the wife, you know, he softens up, and he has evolved as a leader, and there's a softness that is always there, and he is vulnerable in front of camera with you, because we are friends and we want the same thing. We want the best for the people who are going through a really hard time. So it's just, the camera disappears as long as it's not too much rigs. If there's too many cameras, if there's too many people who are recording a podcast while he's here, and then he feels overwhelmed, then it's gonna implode. Then he's gonna start yelling at everybody, just like he never wants you to put a microphone on him, because he feels like you're doing too much of a media thing or capturing too much. So then you just have to do shotgun and avoid him catching you getting in the way of feeding people. So you have to predict what's coming. You have to know what's next. Getting in the car, out of the car. Should you sit in the back seat? Should you sit in the front seat? When is Jose in a good mood? When he's in a good mood, you start filming. You start asking him the question that's been inside of your heart, ready to be shared with him. But you have to catch him at the right time, because he is a complex man and he does not want to get filmed all the time. And if he is grumpy, which happens if he works a lot and if he doesn't sleep a lot, then he will lash out on you. And some people take it well, and some people don't know how to react when a big man is angry at you, someone who is famous, someone who they look up to. So as long as you navigate Jose without getting starstruck, most filmmakers will be okay.
That's really interesting. I keep thinking about too, the other scene that I really like is at the end, toward the end of the film, where he's like driving around and he meets that little boy who kind of leads him to, hey, we've got people who are hungry over here. And he's really talking to the camera. He's really vulnerable, I feel like, in those moments. And we're seeing him kind of behind the curtain a little bit. What was it like? Were any of you were there for that? And what was it like, I guess, capturing that?
Yeah, that was, I think, the only day that Jose allowed me to put a lavalier on him, and he was very angry
Really?
at the beginning. Yeah, absolutely. He didn't like me because I was the guy that was trying to get a mic on him so we could ask him some questions that Ron wanted to ask him.
Yeah.
That's basically the process. So he was a moving target. He, for some reason, allowed me that day, after fighting, a few times. Well, he said, I remember it was the third time he screamed at me. He said, "I don't know how to tell you any other way, man. I'm not going to put that fucking mic on." Um, and so I asked him again, "Can I put the mic on you now?" And we just kind of had that type of relationship where I think we just kind of like, he had yelled at me so much, and then finally he gave in, and we were sitting in the car. And so it was just kind of like he was vulnerable, and honest, very open
Yeah,
and
that's a great
honest,
description
and
of it. Yeah, not vulnerable, just kind of opening himself up to, yeah, it's a great scene.
he was tired, and he needed to go home and have a few days off and whatnot. So it was interesting seeing seeing behind the curtain, I guess. Realizing that there's he just wants to help. It's like it's pretty clear, but he's been put in a position of great leadership, I think, and he's navigating that real time. So
Is he like against the project? Is he open to the project, or was he kind of like not into it the whole time, or was he okay with you guys being there?
I I mean, from our standpoint, from Imagines, I think there was a lot of doubt, like what our process was and what the intention was, and like how were we just going to be able to walk in and tell a story that has been being told and been being recorded for over a decade.
Yeah,
It's kind of a very arrogant position to be thrown into. So how do you um, you know do that properly? And that
yeah,
was the challenge. So
yeah. This has been such a great conversation. Did you guys have anything you wanted to add, like Alicia, Sebastian? Like, I loved the film so much, but I didn't know if there was anything you wanted to add to that maybe people didn't know about the process.
All the different possible stories that could have happened that didn't end up in the film, all the different characters that Kris specifically followed during the pandemic in different places and really committed to, and the feeling in the heart, when you realize that the project is taking a 180 turn and it's going back to an original idea of telling the original story of the organization and the growth and José's life. It's not about José, but it is about José. But it is kind of showing how one person can ignite a shift of consciousness and how we can all do our part in feeding humanity. And this story was supposed to be told, but if Ron would have said, "This is the film, José, that I want to make," on day one to José would have said, "No way, no way. I don't want this to be about me. I don't want me, myself, to be in the focus, my family. No, keep them out of this. Focus on the people in the countries all around the world who are showing up every time there's a national disaster or war. The people who put on the World Central Kitchen t-shirt and are out there every day feeding people. That's who he wants to promote. That's his quest. So he's disappointed in one way that he ended up being the centerpiece, but he also recognized that this will enable him to redistribute power more.
That's fascinating. Wow, that's great. Anything else?
Yeah, gosh, then it's interesting to me how little has changed. José's interview that we got back in 2012, he's saying the same thing now, like almost word for word. And yet also everything has changed. I mean, the organization has really grown and continues to grow. It is amazing how the story really keeps going. And, this film, I don't know what would it have looked like if it was like another year. And I think he changed with COVID. I think he got softer, like his daughter says in the film. Like, I do think he, like everybody, and we see that it, you know, in the last scene, I think it really does show that in a way, this humble intimacy. And you know, he's always been on this journey of trying to figure out what he's doing and why. And perhaps that's the next film that might be more of a focus.
And Jose is coming here to Ukraine tomorrow. But just
Wow.
perspective, back in the days when the organization started, there was one employee and it was $700,000 budget per year. Now there's 90 million US dollar being spent in Ukraine alone every month. 19 million US dollars. So imagine the yearly budget less than $1 million, and now every month 90 million. It's the biggest growth of an organization in humanitarian relief history.
Wow.
You know, you think that Save the Children, Red Cross had a quick growth in the last few decades. Like, this is something unheard of, unseen. The amount of money that the organization have been able to raise and the amount of impact that the organization has been able to do. And that in itself is an interesting case study, you know, and how big part of this story of our shared humanity is because of Jose, or because of the cameras that is capturing Jose, and what does he represent? You know, how is he so relatable? You know,
Yeah.
it's something else, you know. And when you bump into this story, you're like, we are going to keep filming, you know.
Yeah.
And we felt like that for the last 12 years, 13 years, and Kris coming on board, you know, he felt the same thing, you know, whether or not we're getting paid or not. We just want to do our best to see how this story is the metaphor for how people can show up for each other.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is like the complete and perfect story of how a single person and idea can affect humanity at large. I think that it's easy to forget. It's easy to lose hope, given everything, and then to constantly be reminded that it really is, you know, you create your universe. So, and he's just a great example. He's actualizing it. I mean,
Yeah.
his family
Wow.
loves him. He's a great dude, you know. So
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the film. Great work. And congratulations on your Emmy nominations too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.